Katherine Birbalsingh runs an extraordinarily successful school in North London, and she's become famous for her focus on discipline and rigorous standards. She's often called Britain's strictest head teacher, with many fans, especially on the right of politics. This week, she launched a blistering attack on the Education Secretary, saying she had a Marxist ideological dislike of academies and was unable to answer questions about her schools bill when they met. The Education Department said it would not comment on a private meeting held in good faith and welcomed a range of views in a debate about policy. Well, Katherine Birbalsingh is with me now. You met the Education Secretary last Monday and you came out calling her an extreme Marxist. It's a bit strong, isn't it?
Well, she wants to centralise power in the state, so that's what I mean by being a Marxist. The changes she's making make no sense, are not needed, and will destroy the chances of poor children in the system, and also take away the freedoms that currently school leaders have in academies to give a bespoke and tailored approach to their community. And it will be returned, those freedoms are returned to the central state. So the power then is with the state rather than with the leaders, and there aren't many freedoms. Freedoms to tailor your curriculum according to what your children might need, the freedom to be able to hire from different routes in terms of recruitment. You know, there aren't that many, but she wants to take them away.
Well, let me put what I suppose might be the alternative view, that there is a case for ensuring that resources and pupils are distributed evenly and fairly between schools in an area, rather than just leaving it to the principle of every man for himself, devil take the hindmost. And also, when it comes to a curriculum, making sure that every child everywhere at least has a basic set of skills.
I 100% agree. So she keeps talking about, the Education Secretary talks about a floor, it's a floor, not a ceiling. And I said to her, so, okay, name me one school in the country that does not offer a floor of a core curriculum to its pupils. She couldn't name a single school because it doesn't exist. The other thing I said was, what would you say to a mum who's desperate to get her child into a good school, and the places at that good school have been reduced thanks to Clause 50 in this bill. And we've increased the places at the other school that the parent doesn't want their child to go to. But now there are no places in the school that you want your child to go to because the good schools simply have fewer places, which means the good schools have less money, fewer teachers. What do you say to her? She was unable to respond.
Well, you say, by the way, that name me a school where this doesn't take place. It is true that there are schools which don't bother to teach these, and you'll know in a past life, one of the things that I had to do was to regulate institutions for religious practice. And there are some religious schools which didn't bother that much about reading and writing, and some of them had to be actually prosecuted. So it is possible in this country for schools not to do some of the basics.
No, that's not true. They're all doing English and maths and science.
Well, I know it's true because we took them to court.
And because they weren't teaching English.
Well,
and
some of the basic curriculums.
So they weren't.
The point here is that it is the case that central government or local authorities do have some responsibilities to make sure that some basics...
Of course, you're talking about a religious issue where, quite rightly, schools were abusive of what, their religious status. That's a different point.
Okay.
That's not to do with the curriculum. Now, but there are other issues. There's the PAN that I just spoke about. That they will be able, the central state will be able to reduce the number of places in good schools. Okay. There are issues around uniform, where school leaders... The number one piece of advice I give school leaders when they're trying to improve their failing school is to address the uniform. Broken windows theory, it would take me a long time to go into it.
I understand that.
But the fact is, it's the number one way in which you turn around a failing school.
All right.
Schools will not be able to do that if this bill goes through.
I don't want to reduce this to a personality thing, but you've obviously had this clash with the Education Secretary. A couple of points. It's not that awful to be a Marxist. You were once one yourself. But whatever you think of her policies, she has been elected. Is it reasonable for you to essentially call her names?
No, I'm just describing her. I'm saying she's a Marxist because that's the explanation for wanting to centralise the state.
She says that she's... She says she's not. I mean, you read an
Well,
account of
it depends on how you describe a Marxist. I mean, I'm saying she's centralizing powers into the state, and that those freedoms should be left with the academies.
But you know the point here, Sue. You read an account of a private meeting with her in which you said she didn't understand her own bill. She's an extremist.
Hang on. I don't know.
Let me finish what I was going to say. She said that you kept interrupting her and you didn't give her a chance to explain.
No. What I did was every time she tried to fob me off, first of all, it wasn't private. There were 3 other people with her. There was my deputy with me. And they kept staring at us and being horrible and huffing and puffing and all kinds of things and trying to intimidate us. And they didn't give us any water to drink.
I don't think anybody thinks they can intimidate you, Katherine.
Oh, no, they were doing that very, very well. And it was very uncomfortable. And we were, so I was asking questions. As soon as she would try and fob me off with politicians speak, I would move to my next question. And I kept moving to my next question.
Well, I can say from personal experience in this show, that sounds to some people like interrupting them.
Oh, yeah, no, I did interrupt her. I agree. I interrupted her. And perhaps I deserve a bit of a detention for that. But the fact is, I am David here trying to fight Goliath, and I want to hold her to account. And I'm not going to get fobbed off by platitudes and politicians speak where she's not really answering my questions, which is exactly what was happening.
OK, I'm not having you take over this scene. You've got great self-confidence about all of this. And you say in your letter that the government should be listening to practitioners, to teachers, heads, and so on. But you're not the only practitioner in this. And pretty much every teaching union, including your fellow head teachers, broadly back her and criticise you.
But that's not true.
Is it the case that everyone who disagrees with you is just a bit stupid?
No. What you're saying isn't true. School leaders across the country are up in arms about it. It is
They're
the fact
representatives.
Well, no. They are very worried about this bill. Loads of school leaders are worried about this bill. Some have spoken out. Many people are awkward and don't want to because they don't want to get themselves into trouble, which is understandable. Look, there are over 100, there are just about 100, almost 100 schools that got over +1 on Progress Aid. Excellent schools in this country.
That is a measure of how much a child has improved between year 7 and year 11.
That's right. Now, you would have expected the Secretary of State to have gone to visit one of these schools. She hasn't been to visit one of them. I asked her in the meeting. She was unable to name one. Then yesterday, somebody sent me an FOI they'd done of the schools that she's visited. She hasn't visited a single one of those nearly 100 schools that have got a +1 on their Progress Aid. Now, the fact is, I think it's just incumbent on the Secretary of State to be visiting excellent schools and learning from those school leaders who are all very worried about this bill.
Well, we asked the Department for Education what their response was. They said they wouldn't give you, they wouldn't comment on a private meeting. Just very briefly, Katherine, is there a thing here about your school, which is obviously very special? But one thing that's interesting is 99% are ethnic minorities, and they're ethnic minorities who, everywhere in the country, tend to overperform Indian heritage children, African heritage children. Actually, your methods might work for them, but maybe they won't work in Jaywick or Chesterley Street or somewhere else.
We've got very few Indian pupils, actually. We've got a whole variety of pupils at Michaela. But ignore Michaela. This isn't about Michaela. This is, for instance, about Clause 44, where failing schools will no longer be automatically turned into academies, which means that trusts will not be able, that have the reputation of turning around failing schools, they will not be able to get in there and turn around that failing school in time for those children who are there for their education to be saved.
Katherine Birbalsingh, thank you so much for your time this morning.